Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min ha'aretz.
Amen.
Let's go get it.
We're going to get started. The 50-50 going around, so please support the club by participating. Jerry Mincer could not be here today. The board had a contest to see who would take his place today, and I lost. So I'll be leading the meeting today. I first want to thank
Use the mic.
I first want to thank the gentleman who came here at 8 o'clock this morning and set up breakfast. Mike Forrest. Everybody who helped with breakfast, could you just stand up?
Encore. All right, you can't win without buying a lottery ticket.
Yeah, I'm going to ask that the 50-50 guys just keep their voice down. Okay, I understand we have one possible guest here today. Guest, just tell us a little bit about himself.
How you feel about myself? How you been? I work for the school district. I'm still working, and still district attorney. And I've been living in this area for 48 years. And
BJVI.
yeah.
Okay, well, welcome. You enjoy breakfast. Just a few pieces of business.
Oh, you get an arm's length for $5.
$5.
The board had a recent meeting, and we created a new position. We realized that we're really not doing well in terms of transition of leadership. Jerry Mincer, as our current president, he's anxious to turn the reins over. So the board has created a position of president-elect, so that that person can start training to be in the position of president. So we're hopeful that one of you young guys would be interested in learning the position, work under Jerry, and eventually take over. So,
Don't all raise your hand.
Mike, when you do this, 3 fingers point back. So. Treasurer-elect. Actually, the suggestion was that everybody in the position of leadership have an assistant, so you might want to start grooming an assistant. All right, a couple of pieces of business. Ed Stein, could you tell us about this trip?
It's a river cruise on the Morris River. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Morris River. It kind of runs through South Jersey to Delaware Bay. It's pretty interesting. I grew up in that area. I took the cruise about 2 years ago with my family, and it was great. We saw a lot of birds and so forth. It's very relaxed. It's easy to get on the boat. There's no seasickness issues. It was a nice afternoon. We caught some good weather, and hopefully late September, the weather will be nice. It will be hopefully 95 degrees. There's limited room. We're thinking about doing 2 cruises, one around lunchtime and one just before dinner. We're either going to do maybe a potluck with like finger foods, or we'll cater one or the other. I want to see if my email address is on here. If you want to give me a little feedback. Maybe that'll sway the decision as to what we do about food or we can do without food. But in any case, it is a nice cruise, and as I said, it's limited. There's 18 people that fit on the boat. We're going to try to do 2 cruises. So you will get an email within the next week or so, but if you want to give me some feedback, send me an email.
By the way, as an aside, we're looking for more things that we can do besides meetings and speakers. So this trip is one. If you have any other ideas that you would like to see, please do. Don't hesitate to email jerry6er.com.
It's got a shoe in there.
It's going to be announced. Just be patient. Your medication is wearing off.
That's why he's a patient.
Mike Forrest is back joining us, and he would like to just tell us what happened and how he's doing. 30 seconds, Michael.
This has nothing to do with my foot, but a lot of you have asked me about how the brain operation went.
And it went on Tuesday the 17th, and they kicked me out of the hospital 2 days later on the 19th. It went that quickly. It was a 9-hour operation. There were 12 doctors and nurses in the recovery room, in the operating room. And it went.
What did you do with the nurses?
What did I do? What?
The nurses.
I'm not allowed to tell. This was, of course, for my Parkinson's, which I've had for about 15 years. It was to get me off the pills, which I take about 35 a day, just to be able to stand here and not fall apart and quiver the way Michael J. Fox does. He does what is called dyskinesia, which is taking so much medication it causes the body to do things that are uncontrollable. And they tell me when this is all said and done, the dyskinesia won't be there and nothing but what they did, let me very briefly, they put a power pack in my chest. All you see right now is, I don't know if you can see. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Under there is a power pack. And it's a battery that lasts 3.5 years. And when they hook it up, they haven't even hooked it up yet, it should remove all the symptoms. I'll walk in amongst you just like the rest of you. Well, not like all of you. Better than some of you. It should all go away and never come back as long as the battery's working. I had 3 friends who had it done, and the 3 friends who, by the way, had it done by the same surgeon at Penn. Gordon Baltalk is his name. If anybody ever needs his service, he has personally done over 800 of these. He's one of the first guys to get involved with it 10, 15 years ago. And all he does practically is this procedure. And he's very successful at it. What it does is, very briefly, it runs wires from this battery up through here, in through your skull. You can still see the holes they drilled in my skull. And when they turn it on, it creates an electrical current that produces dopamine. Forces if they've got the right spot, it forces dopamine to be created where there was no dopamine, which is why you have Parkinson's. And I will be programmed on the 15th of August, and you'll let me know then if it really works.
A Stepford husband.
Yes, that's where we are. But that's the brief rundown, because I know it's pushed for time. Okay.
That's great.
Mike Perloff has a few words to say to you, a few words. Never had.
Good morning, everyone.
Did we get you yet? Not yet.
This is the Israel section of the meeting. 2 things. First of all, many of you know that in my Israel advocacy efforts, terminology is very important. Apparently, the Palestinian Authority has been listening because they just released a book called Terminology in the Media, Culture, and Politics. And just like for the last 20 years, no matter what the conversation, you would hear Palestinian Arab talk about occupation and apartheid. Now you're going to start hearing about almost everything nasty they do is just resistance. And almost everything that Israel does is racist. So you'll start to hear that quite a bit. Moving on to other friends of Israel, the BBC, on its official Olympic website, has, for every country, when you click on that country's flag, it gives you key facts. Facts such as the area of the country, population of the country, the capital of the country. Well, our friends the British had no capital for Israel, and they even had a pretend country called Palestine that had a capital called Jerusalem. Well, after official complaints from the Israeli government and Olympic Committee, they amended it. And the way they amended it was not as a capital. They said seat of government. And it said seat of government was Jerusalem, but its administrative capital was Tel Aviv. So much for that. And this has been after months and months of pressure. My God, you know, Never Never Land, Oz, and Palestine are three fictitious places in terms of sovereign governments. And the BBC recognized a country called Palestine and assigned as its capital the capital city of Israel. Okay, so much for our friends, the British. However, other friends, the Olympic Committee, has been asked for close to a year now if they would take advantage of the 40th anniversary of the Munich massacre of 11 Israeli athletes. And they refused. They had a small ceremony. Well, damn it, they're not going to recognize them. We will. Don Weisenstein, would you come up, please?
Will the gentleman that I asked to help with this portion of the presentation line up over here? As Mike said,
Careful.
the unfortunate thing is that they won't recognize the victims of Munich, as tragic as that was, but all of us know that we don't forget. So I've asked people to help me with the presentation, and I'll ask them to come up and just recite the name of the person that we're recognizing that was a victim of the Munich tragedies. So we'll start with that, gentlemen.
Okay, number 1 is David Bergel.
Excuse me. Sue Lisa Freeman.
Number 3, Joseph Huntington. Number 4, Eliezer Halfin. Joseph Romano.
Amadir Shapiro.
Kehat Short.
Mark Slavin.
Andres Pizza.
Now, before we go on, I know Eli personally knew Andre, so I'm asking him, maybe why don't you come up here and try to say a few words.
Yes, Ron.
Andres Pizza was like a friend of mine. We were together in the army and we bunked in the same room. Of course, I left Israel, and after I left in 1968, this happened in 1972. I didn't see them for all these years. We bunked together in the same room. He was a new immigrant, came from Romania. When I knew him, he spoke broken Hebrew. I never knew that he was involved with fencing, but he was an ace in fencing later on, I found out. We were in the army together, we were in Air Force. He was in charge of the generator, because he didn't know how to speak, so they gave him a job. I was involved with the radar system, and we were in the cannon against anti-aircraft. So we had one radar controlled 3 cannons, and the generator was to operate all the system. But I was so hurt when I saw it in the news. That's all I have to say.
Jackhouse Springer.
Marshall Weinberger.
Okay, if all of you would join me in a moment of silence in honor of these great people that we lost way too early. Please stand. Thank you. And back to...
Comment with regard to the moment of silence.
Gentlemen, hold on, please.
That there was a very powerful editorial in last week's Wall Street Journal, this very topic. Wall Street Journal, very influential paper. They pointed out that this is a great extension as part of the International Olympic Committee. In response to that, not only the Secretary, but Bob Hoskins, who's the anchor for NBC, has announced that he will personally have a moment of silence at some point in his program. It's expected he will have an audience of over 50 million.
He already did it.
You already did it?
He did. I did not see it, but someone mentioned that he announced the thing, and it wasn't like a whole minute, but he paused for a few seconds,
Yeah.
and then he went on.
So I think the publicity, the adverse publicity that garnered for the IOC, in a sense makes up for the moment of silence that did not occur. This will be something that will last for generations, that they will surely regret.
And thank you, Mike, for your idea about doing this.
As most of you know, we're here under the general auspices of the Active Adult Program of the JCC. And so each month, since I'm very active over there, I bring you what's happening, and hopefully people will attend. The big thing that's happening this coming month is that we're having Madeleine Albright come here to speak about her book. The name of it, but it's basically about her, pardon?
It's called Prague Winter.
Prague Winter. And it's basically about her finding out that she was Jewish, which she never knew for many, many years. I want to tell you that this is so gangbusters that the reception, all these events where we bring in these authors have a reception, has been completely sold out, and only general admission tickets are available. The general admission tickets are $10. If you buy her book, want to buy her book afterwards, that $10 will go defray part of the cost of the book. The date is the 18th of 23rd.
Thursday the 23rd.
Thursday the 23rd of August. If you want to buy a ticket, the tickets are absolutely going fast. We have a maximum capacity in the social hall downstairs of 700. I know they have sold over 600 tickets already. So if you want to go, I would suggest you buy the tickets real fast, because this is going to be, without doubt, one of the most gangbusters events that this place holds. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Dave Neidorf, if you can do the camera and make your own talk.
I just wanted to announce that I've been putting videos of our meetings on YouTube now. So I have 4 meetings up there now, and I'm going to try to put as many as I can up, little by little. So the meeting we had last time from the consulate, the meeting of the first one we had here when Marcy talked about the Federation and the JCC, and the one with the geriatrician, Terry Ginsberg, and the one with the Marine and the Yellow Ribbon Club, those are all up on YouTube. And also the one with the magician from 2 months ago. And Mike has a segment of one of our meetings when he got up extemporaneously and talked about the concept of duplicity from the Arab side. And that little 9-minute video is up, and it's got about 180 hits already. So it's pretty good.
How do you access it?
Well, we're going to send links around in the emails to access it by email. Also, it can go on YouTube and just search for D. Neidorf. That's my username. So D. Neidorf, all my videos are there under my name. Or you can just search for South Jersey Men's Club. It'll be, because the tag is there. So you can search that way.
Wise words from our president-elect. Rich Moskowitz.
Okay, last month I talked about, in August, we're going to be going to the Camden River Sharks, hopefully. And I got a list of people who are interested. We got a pretty good number. I have dates available, and I'm going to be passing these around. If you could put your name and the date that you'd like to go, and we'll try to correlate everything together. The dates are Monday, Tuesday, Saturday, and a Wednesday. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is 7:05 starts. Saturdays 5:35, and fireworks after the game. The cost of the tickets will be either $9 or $11, depending upon the game we go to. We'll also be sending out an email, so if you can, put your name, date preferred, and we'll get it all together. And we'll see you next month in Camden. Thank you.
Rich, you want to say something about eyeglasses?
Eyeglasses. Oh, and anyone who has, I'm a Lions, any used eyeglasses that you can't use, if I can't sell, I'll give them to the Lions Club. So please put them in. Thank you.
Speaking of the donation of glasses, as you know, we're also collecting cell phones and toiletries, and we're dividing the goodies with 3 different groups. One of them is the Yellow Ribbon Club that spoke to us a couple months ago. Just a quick announcement, there's going to be an investment club meeting after, right? Our next meeting is going to, technically is going to be in September. We're skipping next month. However, the club is invited to Jerry Mintzer's summer place down in Margate. There'll be an email sent out, that's the 26th. So technically our next meeting is actually going to be, we're inviting friends and family members to go down to his place. There'll be an email sent out, and any questions you have about directions should be taken care of with that email. Okay. Dave Swartz, could you kindly introduce our guest?
Steve Lubetkin is not only a friend of mine, but a business associate of sorts. He put together a beautiful website for me in the past year. His primary business, I believe, is podcasts. Yes, podcasts and websites. He's been very active in the Jewish community, member of my shul, Temple Emmanuel. I've invited him today to talk to us about Facebook. I don't know about you guys, but there's certain things that intimidate me on the internet. I don't know why. Facebook is one of those. I have a page, a personal page, but not a business page, which I'm told is essential in this day and age. So he's going to streamline how to go about getting around Facebook, and he's going to give us a brief bio about himself. Thank you. Welcome, Steve Lubetkin.
It's great to be with you all this morning. How many of you have Facebook pages? Okay. How many of you are having trouble with it? Just get a sense. Those of you who have it are comfortable with it. Those of you who don't have it are not having trouble with it. Right? Because it's not troubling you at all. Okay. Just by way of setting the table for the talk, and this is sort of a condensed version of a three-part program that you've missed that I was doing for the lifelong learning program here at the JCC. We just had the first two classes in how to use Facebook, and we had about 10 people show up to learn how to use it. And there's a real good reason that some of you have found out why people are using it, which we'll talk about. But in terms of talking about my background in social media, my technology background goes way back. Many of you will recognize the picture if you could see it. Maybe we can turn off one of the lights in the back. Super. I have a tiny little projector that doesn't do such a good job in a big room. And that's not going to do very good for the maybe can we turn off one, maybe? Turn up. There we go. We'll have to suffer with that. That's the Grateful Dead. They're playing in Englishtown, New Jersey in 1977. And that's my backstage pass. I was covering the concert for the Asbury Park Press. And the Asbury Park Press was one of the more technologically advanced newspapers. This was the portable computer that they sent me and another reporter with to cover the concert. We were helicoptered in. I don't know how many of you remember John Shear was a big concert promoter. He owned the Capitol Theater in Passaic, did a lot of concerts in New Jersey in the 70s. And the way he was getting the news media into the concert was by helicopter from a staging point off of Exit 8 on the Turnpike. We got in the helicopter with this thing. They bring us into this concert, my first and only helicopter ride, by the way. We landed, and then we realized we had to find a place with an AC power outlet and a telephone, because there was no internet, there was no wireless connection. We had to plug this thing into a suction cup acoustic modem to transmit over the phone line to get our stories back to the newspaper in Asbury Park. And believe it or not, we actually found one. But when the story appeared in the paper, you know, technology was in its infancy. And my story appeared in the newspaper looking like it had been written by Archie the Cockroach. There was no punctuation, no capital letters. You know, it was like it just came streaming out of this computer with nothing. But, you know, I tell people that story because it shows, you know, I've had kind of a long history in technology. Back when I had hair. That's me back there. One of the reasons you need to be concerned about social media is because the way people consume content has changed. How many of you read a printed newspaper? That's a demographic thing. Okay, if I ask that question in a group of people younger than 30, almost no hands will go up.
That's because they can't read.
Well, that may be true.
It is true.
Many of them have trouble with that, I agree. But a lot of them consume their information online, and the survey shows, if you look at this part here, this is digital, this is print, and it doesn't look like it, but it's declining very precipitously. The use of print. Even the New York Times is moving away from print. Everybody's moving to digital. And for the millennials, for the people in the 25 to 35 range, they want content when they want it. You know, we're accustomed to, oh, it's 9 o'clock Sunday night, time to go home and watch The Sopranos on HBO. My older daughter, who's 27, used to have a regular get-together with one of her friends on Wednesday nights. They would go out to dinner, they'd go shopping at Target, and then they'd come back to the house and watch Big Brother. The only problem is that's not the night Big Brother was on. They were DVRing it and then fast-forwarding through the commercials. So commercial advertising, print and broadcast, is becoming very useless with that generation. But more importantly, they want the content when they want it delivered to them, not when we want to deliver it. So appointment viewing or doing something on someone else's schedule is very alien to them. That's why things like Facebook become so important. Keep hitting. Again, demographically, how many of you know what that logo is?
Yellow page.
Right. Okay. You show that logo to people under 30, they have no clue. They've never used it. Okay? And we grew up in an era when the way you got visible was to name your company AAAAAA Exterminators. And that got you to the top of the exterminators in the yellow pages.
The original app.
Yeah. And that was the original search engine optimization, was to put the A's in front of your name so you would float to the top in an alphabetical search. What do they have today? Right? They all know what that is because they all use it. Google. That's the way most people today search for solutions to any kind of problem or for any kind of information. That's where they go. There are other search engines. There's Yahoo. There's Alta Vista, I think, is still in business. But they're way down. Almost nobody uses them. Everybody uses Google. Back in 1974, it's kind of an interesting sidetrack. In 1974, the Penn Central Railroad, how many of you remember the Penn Central? They were belly up, they were running out of cash, and they needed money to pay the payroll or the trains would stop running. So they went to Congress, and Congress said, we can't believe you actually don't have the money. So Penn Central commissioned what is probably the only corporate movie in American history that was specifically made to show how bad things were. They actually went around the railroad and filmed trains that were sitting on rotted ties, and they actually had a couple of trains derail in front of the camera. I mean, it was a, you know, really a surprising movie. And they showed this. They took this 16-millimeter movie around Washington in the first use of social media, if you want to think of it that way. Private screenings for groups of congressmen, but they had to physically drag this movie around with them. After they showed it and got the bridge funding before the creation of what became Conrail, the trustee of the Penn Central estate called back all the copies of the film and had them all destroyed, except for the one that a friend of mine put on a VHS cassette for me. And it sat on my shelf for about 30 years, and I took it out one day when I didn't have anything to do and digitized it, threw it up on YouTube. One of my friends called me from the railroad and said, "Where did you get that? They were all destroyed. That's the only color copy of the complete movie I've ever seen." And I said, "Oh, you know, I wish I knew. I wouldn't have put it up on YouTube so quickly." It's had over 20,000 views on YouTube. But it's an interesting relic of that era. You can go out there, if you search Penn Central 1974, you'll find it.
Still there then?
It is still there. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I left it up.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, it's an interesting example of how it happens. Moving forward. I don't want to talk about podcasting so much. I wanted to talk about Facebook. So we'll go over to Facebook. So this is my Facebook page, and it's a little hard to see because, you know, one of the things that happens with Facebook is they change everything all the time, and you never know when they're going to change something until they do. A couple of weeks ago, those of you who use Facebook, I don't know if you were aware of this, Facebook decided that to make the user experience more consistent, they would give everybody a Facebook email address. And what they did to your profiles, you can go check this when you get home, you may not be aware of this, everyone's profile was arbitrarily changed so that if you had an email address published on your page where you have information about yourself, it was changed to yourname@facebook.com. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get people to use their email system. So they just did this overnight, and everybody goes and looks and says, well, wait a minute, I never use that. I'm not going to look at emails there. And they make it difficult for you to find out how to change it back. You can, but it's difficult. And that's why I always tell people, when you think about Facebook and you get aggravated with anything that they do, remember this. You are not Facebook's customer. You are Facebook's product. Okay? Facebook and even Google, what they are doing is collecting data about your behavior and selling that. Not individually. They don't sell what Steve's doing individually, at least as far as we know. They aggregate everything together and they sell it to advertisers. How many of you took statistics? How many of you remember the statistical random sample, the sample size? Does anybody remember what the number is? Call it out if you know the number. Okay. When I took statistics, the sample you needed to get as close as possible without spending too much money to accuracy was 384 people. If you take a random sample of 384 people, you can get 5% error. And if you try to get less than 5% error, it's going to cost you too much because you'd have to get too many people in the sample. Well, guess what? Google and Facebook are the world's largest focus groups. They have the whole universe, essentially, of people. There are 900 million users of Facebook. So when you have 900 million people, you can make some really accurate guesses about behavior across populations. And that's why this information is so valuable to them. That's why they give you the access for free. But don't expect them to be very responsive to how you feel about what they're doing when they change stuff, right? So if anybody, what are some of the questions that people have about Facebook? If you have them, just call them out while we're talking here, because I'd be happy to answer questions. One of the things that's most interesting is, what do you think is the largest group joining Facebook right now? Age group, age and demographic.
Young. Grandparents.
Grandparents. It's women over 50 is the fastest growing group on Facebook for the last 2 years, 3 years. And there's a reason for that. It's really simple. Honey, when am I going to see pictures of the grandchildren? Mom, I put them up on Facebook. You have to get on Facebook. And that's why so many people, the other side reason is, stalking high school boyfriends. They are doing that. That is happening. So check on what they're looking at. And to be fair, high school girlfriends too.
How about the CIA?
How about the CIA? Well, there's a very funny video out. Someone did a spoof about Mark Zuckerberg winning the American Freedom Medal from the CIA, because the CIA announced that they didn't need any more money for espionage because they had no idea that people would give them this information so freely, and they were so glad they invented Facebook to collect it. So, think about don't be paranoid, but think about how much information you give out when you click on stuff on Facebook. Okay, if you like something, they know that let's say you click on a pro-Israel page. They know something about your politics. You click on, somebody posts an anti, whichever side of the political spectrum you're on, an anti-Romney thing, and you click on it, well, they know that you're anti-Romney, or that you have leanings that way. Or if it's anti-Obama, you click on that. And, did you have a question?
Well, because of the big brother aspect of Facebook, when Steve tells you they're collecting everything, their storage is so inexpensive, and they have so much money that literally, it's not just everything that you click on. They know who your friends are, they know what your friends click on, and there's a phrase, if you don't pay for the service, you probably are the product. And in this case, one of my chief concerns is privacy. So if you can work in whenever, and it's not a
privacy
effort, but I often wonder what are the best ways to protect our privacy, because people don't necessarily realize if someone sends you a virtual drink, if you opt into those apps or applications,
sure,
it actually is giving permission for that application to suck all the information that you may have been protecting earlier. And Facebook also resets their privacy policy every once in a while.
Yeah, that's true.
And that, to me, that's troublesome.
The broad statement I will make about privacy is this. game over, okay? Privacy ended with the rise of the internet. Privacy in that traditional sense. If you are online in any way, there's a lot to be known about you. A few years ago, I got a phone call from a woman. She says, I'm an editor for one of IBM's internal magazines. And, you know, IBM at the time was using a tagline called doing e-business, right? And the E looked like an @ sign from an email address. And she says, I was doing some research and I discovered that you seem to have invented the phrase e-business. And I'm thinking, ka-ching, right? Like, well, what makes you think I invented it? And she said, well, I did a Google search, and the earliest reference to e-business that I found on the internet was an email you sent in 1992.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, really? And I went, while I'm on the phone with her, I went right on Google and found it. There's a part of the internet that almost nobody uses anymore. It's called the Usenet. Anybody heard of the Usenet?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. We got some old-time users here, veterans, experienced users. The Usenet, for those of you who don't know, is a series of chat rooms, basically, conference areas where you can talk about all kinds of topics. There are roughly 40,000 of them, and they range from high-level mathematics and computer science discussions to really, really low-level hardcore pornography. There's all kinds of stuff in the Usenet. And at some point, I was in a Usenet chat, and I had a signature block. And at the time, you know, there wasn't as much unification of email addresses. You had to have email addresses on different systems to communicate with people. CompuServe didn't have a gateway to the internet, if you remember CompuServe. AOL didn't have a connection to the internet. You could only send emails from AOL to AOL, right? And so you had to have multiple email addresses. So I had like 4 or 5 email addresses in the signature block, and I had written, doing e-business as, and with the list of the email addresses. I said, wow. So I said to her, would you like to license it? And she says, I'll have to get back to you on that. And I never heard from them again. And a couple of weeks later, I noticed IBM stopped using e-business. And I was like, another missed opportunity, you know? I don't know if I invented it, by the way. I may have stolen it from somewhere. I probably stole it from somewhere. But yeah.
What about like my accountant? He said he won't be doing paper tax returns. Everything is going to be filed online. Doesn't that pose
That shouldn't pose a big problem, because when you file tax returns, it's being done over an encrypted, secure connection. If it's done properly, and most of the firms that process tax returns are subject to some standards that are inspected, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But you know, if you send an email to someone, I mean, the way the internet works, you know, if you send an email, it hops across multiple servers, and in theory, each of those servers has a copy of that email address, depending on how they purge their systems. So, you know, if you send somebody a sensitive information like a login and password or a credit card number, heaven forbid, you never send a credit card number in an email. You know, it could be stored somewhere and it could be retrievable. Many people discovered the hard way that if on certain servers, if they put up documents for work, that the documents were discoverable in a Google search. Just as an exercise, go home and Google the file name extension for an Excel spreadsheet is .xls or .xlsx. If you Google that file extension, you'll be surprised at how many spreadsheets you can identify through a Google search that people have put out on servers that are not secured, that while it may not be sensitive information, it's certainly not information they intended to make public. So, I mean, that's an issue. Yeah.
That's very interesting, because there's a lot of commerce done on the email, on the internet.
Yeah.
And when you buy something, they ask for your credit card.
Encrypted. It's only, and the way you can tell that is if you look up in the corner of the browser where the address of the website is, it'll show you if the site is secured with a little lock, and all of the e-commerce sites are secured for that. So you don't have to worry about it there. But in an email, certainly. There was one over here, and it'll come to. Yeah.
I think what happened with the Penn State with the email being retrieved. After so many years, those emails are still floating out there.
Organizations archive email. If you work for an organization, as he was saying, the storage is so cheap. You know, you carry more storage on a thumb drive in your pocket than the Apollo 11 astronauts had in the computer they took to the moon. Okay, so you know, the concept that it's surprising is not really. Everything gets archived. Everything is archived. The big issue, and if you talk to the people at the National Archives, the big issue is how do you migrate all this stuff that you're storing as new technologies come along to preserve it. Because, you know, we started with magnetic floppy disks, and then we went to the 3.5-inch floppy disk, and then we went to CDs, then we went to DVDs, optical drives. What's the next generation of technology to store it that they have to learn and acquire because they have to preserve it, because it's their job to preserve it? So preserving it is not terribly surprising, and it always gets discovered. If you write it in an email, you know, and there's a lawsuit, it will be discovered.
In that vein, all email goes through servers.
Yeah.
And servers, they never delete information from.
Yeah.
So
It's always there.
When you delete your email and you think it's gone, it's sitting on a server somewhere. And if you go through like Verizon will have it on their server. And if you go through Yahoo, it'll be on Verizon server and Yahoo server. It'll always be there. So.
The other thing, another interesting thing that happened, and it sort of made people really upset with Google when they first came out with Gmail. Google has computers that are looking at the text of your email. They're not actually reading it, but they do have computers looking at your Gmail content. And if they find relevant keywords, it serves you up relevant advertising alongside your email message. And that was very disconcerting to people when they first started doing it, because it seemed like someone was reading their email. How did they know I was talking about, you know, having bunions and there's an ad for bunions right next to my email? I mean, that was literally happening, yeah.
Doesn't Facebook do the same?
Facebook, absolutely. Facebook looks at what you're looking at. I'm a Mason, okay? I'm wearing a Masonic ring. And I've clicked on things where I say, I like this because it was something done by the Masons, right? And so, you know, I'm constantly bombarded with ads alongside my Facebook page for Masonic jewelry. I mean, that's just, you know, that absolutely they're doing that. Yeah.
People put stupid things on Facebook.
Oh boy, do they ever. How many of you have seen people announcing that they're pregnant by posting their sonogram? This is the newest thing. You know, some of the young women are even changing their avatar, the picture that goes with their profile, you know, and they change it to the sonogram of the fetus, and it's like creepy to me.
Well, the point is, they also put up inaccurate information. Now, is there any way that, for instance, somebody can force Facebook to remove it? Maybe it's slanderous.
You know, they're not very responsive to that kind of stuff. The only ones who are marginally responsive to that sort of stuff is YouTube. There's a process you can go to have stuff taken off of YouTube, but you know, it's free speech. It's First Amendment protected unless you sue somebody for putting up something, you know.
Do you sue Facebook, or do you sue the individual who put it up?
You got to find a lawyer who will take the case. The answer is yes. You know, go sue Facebook. I mean, you know, they have a lot more money than you do, and your lawyer's not going to work on contingency forever. So, you know, what? So the younger people are using Facebook to communicate in ways that were not familiar to us, and sharing stuff that we look at and say, wow, I can't believe they're sharing that. They have a much different sense of what privacy is about and what's personal. And they're much more open with each other about it, to the point where sometimes they forget. Now, the privacy settings on Facebook, like you said, they change frequently. They'll change the policy. They'll say, we're trying to make it more uniform or whatever, but basically it keeps people off balance. That's the bottom line. It keeps you off balance as to what settings you should have to keep some semblance of privacy, to restrict the information you post to the people you want to see it, right? And so one of the things that happened a couple of years ago, there was a young fellow named Kevin Colgan in New York. Kevin was an intern at one of the European banks. And Kevin wanted to go to his friend's Halloween party. Let me see if I can get the page. Hold on one sec. See, now there's a whole bunch of Kevin Colgans, but that's not the one I'm looking for. Let's see if we can find the picture. The picture may be gone by now. It's been a few years. I'm not seeing it. Yeah, the picture is... Well, the way to find it is to Google Cool Wand. There it is. Like I said, nothing ever leaves the internet. So Kevin wanted to go to the Halloween party his friend was holding. He told the boss, I have to leave, I have a family emergency at home. And the boss says, okay, fine. He left for the weekend, and Kevin went to the Halloween party and dressed up as Tinkerbell. Okay? Somebody took the picture. I don't know if Kevin took it, or somebody took it and posted it to Kevin's Facebook timeline. The problem was Kevin had friended his boss on Facebook. So when it showed up on Kevin's timeline, the boss saw it. And the next Monday morning when Kevin came into work, the boss had sent a memo around to the staff saying, we're very glad that Kevin's back. He had a family emergency, and we're glad everything worked out. By the way, Kev, cool wand. And he included this picture in the email to everyone on the staff. And so, what's that?
He's lucky he didn't fire him.
He didn't fire him, but he was suitably chastened. The rumor was that he went to another city and changed his name for a while because he was getting so much ridicule over it.
By the way, besides the fact that kids today, or the under 30, I guess that's kids to us, don't read newspapers, there's also a higher level of stupidity when it comes to this stuff.
Well, of course, there's the critical reasoning and trying to understand what's true and what's accurate. And to be honest with you, I see it in all generations. How many of you have heard about the guy who woke up in the bathtub and found that his kidney had been stolen? Okay, it's false. How many of you read the email about the padiddles, where it's a gang initiation? If you blink your lights at somebody with a padiddle, they're going to follow you home and kill you. It's false. Or hypodermic needles in the coin slots on payphones. Nobody uses payphones anymore. All of those things. They're all hoaxes. And there are hundreds of thousands of them, and I used to get them. Thank goodness my mom doesn't use her computer anymore, but she used to forward this stuff to me, and I would say, and I'd write to her, Mom, it's not true. Oh, okay. Well, I just want to make sure everybody knew in case it was, but it's not. But you see that a lot. There's a lot of that going on, Michael.
Yeah, if you own any rental property, because people are so incredibly stupid about what they'll put on their Facebook page, before you let somebody sign a lease, take a look at what they do. I know several people where potential renters who seem like normal people were in bikers, gangs, and would have up about big parties that they did. And of course, they didn't let them sign the lease.
People have been known to put up pictures that were taken of them when they were younger, thinner, hairier, as their profile picture. And then, when they finally set up that meet with the high school boyfriend or girlfriend, everybody's disappointed on both sides, right? So, you have to be a little bit skeptical about what people post, that stuff. Over here, somebody who hasn't.
What would you say? I'm not on Facebook. My wife is.
Okay.
I really have no desire to read about my kids on Facebook. I see them.
Well, that's good. Most of the people who are on Facebook is because they don't see them, because they're on another part of the country.
So what would be a good reason for someone like me to be on Facebook?
What would be a good reason? It's a place to connect. It's like a town square in some ways. I've reconnected with people that I knew from elementary school. Some of them I liked. Some of them I didn't like so much. I had one of them who was like a real jerk when I was in elementary school, and he sent me a friend request, and I figured, oh, don't be so petty. It was 40 years ago. Friend him. So I friended him, and you know what? He was just as big a jerk. He started putting up stuff that was so tinfoil hat stuff. I just defriend, and I don't do this often. I defriended him. I had to, because it was like, he just hadn't changed. So yeah.
Well, I use Facebook infrequently, but I get all these postings like people I never heard before.
Well, here's what happens.
And I didn't even know them. How did that happen?
It can happen if you have. It depends on the way your timeline is set up, your news feed. You may be seeing stuff that you didn't realize you asked to see. You may have made friends with people that you didn't realize you were making friends with. Or you may be seeing friends of your friends. Because there's so many different levels of privacy and complexity. So, for example, if you set your privacy that you only want your pictures to be seen by your friends, but your friend has the privacy set that anything that's shared with them gets seen by their friends, you've already shared it with people you don't know. And that can happen without you doing much of anything.
You become a digital voyeur.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, the term that people use is cyber stalking, and there's quite a lot of that goes on, you know, and and people do that all the time. That's looking for the boyfriends and girlfriends. You had your hand up.
Yeah, Steve, you had shown the famous Tinkerbell
Yeah.
photo. There was a recent lawsuit where somebody actually sued their boss because their boss demanded that they give them their password to Facebook. And guess what? They lost.
Well, there's some interesting things developing. There was one or two firms where people who, without consulting, I suspect, their HR attorneys, made demands of candidates and employees that they either turn over their password to Facebook or friend the boss, so the boss could see what they were doing. Those are enormous violations of all of the personnel laws and all of the HIPAA laws and things. You can get in so much trouble, and a lot of the attorneys who came out after those stories broke said, you know, if a company requires you to provide this information, in other words, you have to show me your Facebook contents. Suppose you are, like the gentleman here who had Parkinson's, suppose you have a medical condition that you're not obligated to disclose to your employer, and they now know about it. They now have a legal responsibility to protect information that they've been made privy to. Or, for example, you're a candidate for a job, and they're not allowed to ask you your marital status, they're not allowed to ask you your age, but if they find out about it because they demanded access through Facebook, they violated the law if they do anything with it. So let's say they ask you for access and you're over a certain age, and they decide not to hire you for the job, or you're a member of a minority group, or you're a member of some other protected group, and they don't hire you, they're liable because you can say they used that information against me. And so it's a bad idea for a company to ask for that information. Sir?
Actually, the case, Bob, that you brought up, you said they lost. Who lost that? The employer lost or
no? The employer was allowed to ask
I'm not sure.
for the password.
They can ask for it, but they expose themselves to huge liability if they access that information.
Well, what if somebody doesn't have a Facebook account?
Well, you know, the question is, I mean, if you're a candidate for a job, we're in a very difficult environment. People will do a lot of things today to get jobs that they wouldn't do in years gone by. I personally would not want to work for a company that asked for that information. I would rather be unemployed a little bit longer, and I would say so.
What happens if you tell them I don't have a Facebook account?
Well, what can they do to you? You know, can they not hire you because you said you don't have a Facebook account? Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm told by some of my students, and I'm asking for verification of this, that those seeking employment in public schools, that public schools are putting limitations on their employees' activities on Facebook.
Yeah, they are. A lot of districts are saying that teachers cannot have students as friends on Facebook and stuff like that. And teachers are getting themselves in trouble too. They had a teacher who posted about how stupid her kids were or something. I forget what she did, but she got in a lot of trouble. You know, it's not. It's not something that you tread very lightly on. You have to be careful. You have to use common sense. You know, there are inappropriate contact between teachers and students in the real world. So you have to watch in the cyber world how you do that. But for the most part, for you using it socially, it's a way to reconnect with old friends. It's a way to keep in touch with people in different parts of the country a lot easier. One of the things that I find on the positive side, we talked about a lot of the negative stuff. On the positive side, if you're friends with a bunch of people and you're sharing all of this trivia information on a regular basis, When you get together with them face to face, it's a much richer experience because you don't have to spend the first 30 minutes doing the catch-up. What's been going on? You know, I go places frequently and people say, oh, I know everything you're doing. I follow you on Facebook. And you can go on to a deeper, different kind of conversation with them. Instead of talking about, the trip you went on last week, the bike ride you went on Sunday. They know about that already, right? Yeah.
Why is it so difficult to get off of Facebook? Cancel.
It's like the Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. You can't disengage so easily from Facebook. You can delete your account, but it's not really deleted like everything else.
I did 4 years ago, and they said if you use Facebook within a 2-week period, you're automatically on forever.
You can delete your account, but it's still, deleting your account doesn't necessarily mean it's completely gone. There's a period of time in which it can be recovered. But the other thing I will tell you is, for those of you thinking about it for business, for having a business page on Facebook, I tell my clients to use business pages on Facebook or Twitter to drive traffic back to your own website. If you've got really good content, whether it's videos that Dave is making or things that you're doing about your business, products and services, put them on your website where you can control them. Don't upload them to Facebook where they claim ownership of your content, because you can't get it down from Facebook so easily. And if you only put it there and you're not feeding your own website that you control, you're not going to have control of your content. And you want to get people back to where you are. The other thing is, as an exercise, because Facebook does make it hard to leave, go home, those of you who have Facebook, and just see how easily you can export your friend list into a text file or an Excel spreadsheet. It's very hard to do. It's hard to find the instructions.
Could you talk about LinkedIn also?
Sure. LinkedIn. Okay, most people, broadly speaking, if you go to a room full of business people and you say, how many of you have a Facebook page? Maybe 60% of the hands go up. How many of you have a LinkedIn page? All the hands go up. Because how many of you have a LinkedIn page? And again, how many of you have a Facebook page? Okay, so more LinkedIn pages than Facebook. LinkedIn is for those of you who don't know it, is the professional, it's the professional social network. It's where you put your online resume. It looks a lot like Facebook. It's got the stream of news and information and stuff, and you get to put up your profile, which is like an online resume, right? And so you just put up all like a resume. I mean, that's basically what it is. And what happens is people connect with other people who they trust through people they trust. And LinkedIn uses the degrees of separation concept, 1, 2, or 3 degrees away from the person. If you're 1 degree away, you're connected to them. There are people who use LinkedIn to create a circle of trusted contacts, people they actually know. They only connect with people they actually know. Whereas on Facebook, people are connecting with people that they only know in cyberspace. Now, I've always done that in both places because I'm interested in connecting with people I might not know. I don't want to just confine myself to people I actually know. So I'm perfectly comfortable connecting with other people. Yeah?
What are the risks of that? So whether it's, let's take LinkedIn, where it could be someone, like you talked about your childhood friend, but where it's someone that you might know, but it doesn't. You're not sure that you can trust them.
Right.
What are the downsides of connecting with people that
on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
The biggest problem on LinkedIn is if you get invited to connect with someone who's forgive me, but I don't know where Dave went. Did he have to leave? Someone who's an executive recruiter. There are some people who are not like Dave who are less scrupulous in their business practices, and they want to make friends with you not because they have a great job for you, but because they want to raid your address book for candidates. That's probably the biggest problem. But you do find people will ask you to connect on LinkedIn, and if you don't know them, and you go and look at their profile, and what I find typically is it's somebody in India or some country in Asia who, according to their profile, is a student or just graduated from a business school I've never heard of, and they have 2 connections on LinkedIn. And neither of them are people I know. And they're basically just throwing out, broadcast blast invitations to see who they can connect with. That's fine. I will connect with students if they give me a good reason to. But if it's a boilerplate, I'd like to make you part of my professional network on LinkedIn, which is the boilerplate message that they now tell you should really pay attention to changing when you invite somebody. Write a personal message. Don't use the default message. If it's the default message, they only have 2 connections. I've never heard of any of them, and I've never heard of the school they go to. I will probably ignore that. I just won't connect with them.
We just do 2 more questions.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn is like Facebook, only you have more control?
No, I mean, LinkedIn for most people, if you think of them, Facebook for most people is the fun place, and LinkedIn is the more serious professional place. Most of the stuff that's on LinkedIn is work-related, business-related.
With LinkedIn, LinkedIn also allows you to join groups in your professional circle. And that's where you get a lot of the people who farm.
Yeah.
They'll join a group, and then they'll go down the list in the group, and they'll try to,
Sure.
they'll try to link up with all of those.
If there's interest, I can tell Sharon Siegel that there's a demand for a LinkedIn class, and we could do a LinkedIn class. Do a few sessions.
It's much more complex to use
It is.
than Facebook.
But it's a very effective way to network with people. I've gotten business from it. I've gotten business from both, so there's a good reason to be on both. But anyway, thank you very much for your time, and I'll stick around.
Steve writes a column in The Voice. Probably about once a month. Steve's been on the board of The Voice for many, many years. It's a great asset
Thank you.
to the newspaper. But you can keep up with him by reading his columns about every other issue in The Voice.
And how many of you would like to see Steve as a member of our men's club? Just applaud. You get a free membership.
I'm in trouble now. If I miss a meeting, you're going to appoint me to it.
We know what it's like to on Facebook.
We have a certificate. We have a certificate of appreciation that we'd like to give you. And we have one other task for you before you go. You're going to pick our 50-50 winner.
This is to make you a real friend.
Okay.
The winning share is $58.
He's going to make one friend and a lot of enemies.
All right. Mixing it up. Nothing up this sleeve.
LinkedIn.
All right, here it is.
Last 4 digits are 926.
Oh.
I got a 6. I have one of those 9.
Over there.
Oh, I missed only by a few. That's 9:30.
926.
Hey, man, the rich keep getting richer.
Okay, gentlemen, have a good weekend. Oh, Don? Hold on.
The people that participated in our recognition of the music victims, if you would stay afterwards for a quick photo shoot.
And we're going to have an investment club meeting over here.
Yeah.